Were y'all okay on the homework?
Yeah.
So y'all figured out?
How to do math? Yes.
Well, it's
How
not
to
that,
do basic.
it's not that easy for some people. Okay, so there was one on there where you didn't have to journalize anything. You just had to come up with the amount to pay on the invoice. And I mean, you literally could just take the original amount, take the refund out, and then figure out the discount from that. That was throwing it. I mean, I had several people ask me what to do on that one. Threw it for a loop.
Well, they have videos on there. So
They also have a hand at the bottom of the page too. That's it.
Sometimes I think those tools are not utilized. All right, so this is still part of last time. So y'all had you work this one, but if y'all done homework, you don't need to do that unless you just feel like it. Okay, so we've done the purchases side of it. Now we're going to look at the sales side. The sales side's a little more involved because you've got to deal with showing the cost of what you're selling. So I'm telling you on your sheets that sales transactions are more complex than purchase transactions. So you may want to just kind of mark this as something to refer back to. You make sure you have 4 lines, at least 4 lines on every sales entry, because you've got to record the either cash or receivables. Do you need those worksheets? You didn't. You're gonna either debit cash or accounts receivable, depending on whether it's a cash sale or a sale on account. You've got to credit your sales. You're gonna debit cost of merchandise sold, and you're gonna credit inventory. So we'll go through those, but I like to do them in a different order. But the way Cengage is structured, you should do all your debits first, then all your credits first. Y'all kind of figured, y'all gotten used to that now. Because I may not show you that way, but you know when you go in there, you've got to list your debits first, right? Because I like to do the sales side of it, then the cost side of it. Anyway, all right. So our first example here, we have got I worked them out ahead of time. That's unusual. Okay. Golly, I did get way in there. All right, so Jim's Tactical Outlet on May 12th has cash sales for the day $26.40. Cost of merchandise sold was $19.70. So journalize the sale and the related cost. So you would date it, and he said cash, right? We're going to debit cash for $26.40. Credit sales for $26.40. You're going to debit cost of merchandise sold for $19.70. And you're going to credit merchandise inventory for the same amount. That's why I like to do them like that, because you have the same numbers. But, you know, when you do your homework, do cash and, got the wrong one, sorry. Cash and cost of merchandise sold, debits, and then your credits. You don't smart enough to figure that out. Okay, example 8. The point of doing this one is to show you that if somebody's buying something with a credit card, that's not the same thing as buying something on account. So if you see a problem where somebody's bought something and used their credit card to pay for it, their bank card, I forget what all they call them, store credit card, bank credit card, whatever. If you see credit card, it is a cash sale. Do y'all know how that works? Anybody ever worked in retail and know how that works when people pay with credit cards? Probably not. Okay, so you know you have the little machine that you swipe through or stick your card in with the chip, you know, whatever, when you go buy something. You go to the cafeteria or the bookstore, you've got to swipe, or, you know, anywhere, everywhere. Okay, well, that machine is linked to a company called the clearinghouse. There's multiple companies, and they provide the service of taking that credit card information, getting the money from that customer's bank and putting it in your account. So you as a merchant hire a company, contract with a company to do that for you. And then at the end of the month, they'll charge you a fee, and it's usually a percentage of the sales. So that's how that works. But it takes a couple of days, but you'll have the money in your checking account within a couple of days. You're not going to have it right there on the spot unless your system is set up that way. But it's essentially a cash sale. There's a little bit of a lag time, but it's not like billing. You have to bill somebody for it and then wait for them to pay you. It's just a little bit different from them handing you bills, dollar bills. Okay, so if it's a credit card sale, December 3rd, St. Nick's Christmas trees made sales of $1,400 to customers paying with credit cards. Cost of the tree sold was $700. So journalize the sale and the cost of sales. So we're just going to debit cash, even though it's credit cards. That's why a lot of times you'll hear, like, if you go to buy something, it'll say debit or credit if you're using your debit card. Well, I mean, I'm pretty sure it's probably the same way. Most people don't realize that, and you probably don't give a rep. I mean, I don't know why I do. I guess because I've been in that position before. But usually the clearinghouses will charge you less for a debit transaction than they will for a credit transaction, like maybe 3.5% for a debit transaction and 4% for a credit or something like that. Because a lot of times I've had people ask me debit or credit, and I'll say something like, well, which one's cheaper for you, as a debit? And they'll say, yeah, yep. It's just the way it's set up. But that's the reason they ask you, because it's your preference. But if if you'll do a debit, then it's going to cost them less. So some of this you may think is like useless knowledge. One day you may think back and go, oh, she said that once. You never know. There's a lot I wish the teachers would have told me. Of course, by the time y'all get out, it's probably totally different too. Everything's changing so fast. All right, and again, you'll just debit cost of merchandise sold and credit merchandise inventory. Y'all know my abbreviations, don't you? They just get really long. All right. Next, let me ask y'all's opinion on something too while I'm thinking about it. I mean, I don't know what I'm going to do ultimately, but I would like to get your input. I told y'all we have that big problem we're going to do as a project, and it counts as a test grade. Y'all remember that?
Yep.
Okay, we have it's called strategic learning objectives. Have you ever heard another teacher talk about those SLOs? We have certain learning objectives that we need to test you guys on for certain classes because it has to do with the college's accreditation. I always like it when they keep walking. I've had them come in my class a couple of times to get me. And I've only been here 2 years. She said it's nothing major. But the way I have been doing it, I do it on paper. And the first thing you have to do, the first part is journalizing entries. The second part is taking those entries, posting them to the ledger, and preparing a trial balance. So it's like chunks, but it's everything you learned so far to the very end, closing entries, closing the trial balance, and all that kind of stuff. So normally I give it to you on paper, but I could assign it in Cengage. But that's a lot of going back and forth. I don't know if it's quicker for y'all to do it on paper or going back and forth between the journal and the ledger on that Cengage screen. I don't like that. Huh?
Is this before or after Thanksgiving?
It's going to start soon, and you're just going to work on it. Like, I'll give you, week or so to do your entries. You got to turn them back in and let me check them, because if you make mistakes on your transactions, it screws up the whole rest of your problem if you don't fix them. So I'll grade each part. If it's on paper, especially, I got to have it before you go. So,
Which is the light?
less than a month now? Or is that a month?
We gotta roll. So anyway, I don't think I would want to do it on a computer like that. Only if I knew it was like, if it was all laid out to where I could just kind of do like this, you know. But you're taking entries and posting them to the ledger, so it's a lot of flipping back and forth. Of course, you can line your screens up. I don't know. How do y'all?
Unless you split the 3 button. It has like a.
It has that 3 button
like
where you,
3 screens on it.
yeah.
Unless you split them right.
So what y'all think? Do y'all prefer to do stuff on paper or on the computer?
One requires a lot of writing, but the other requires the other.
I mean, they're both gonna take time.
Could we do you get check your work if you're not sending it?
Probably not.
Oh, then it doesn't matter.
I don't know. That's a
Yeah,
good
but so
question.
about that, I'd rather
That's a
do it
good
on
question.
paper.
I'll have to think about that because you're gonna need to be checked.
Yeah.
And either I check you manually. I mean, because essentially this is gonna count as a test grade. You could make 100 on it and it could do a lot for your grade if you're struggling. I don't know, I'm gonna think about it. But the thing is, you're not getting it all at once. You gotta do your transactions first, then post them. So it's not like you've got this huge project, you gotta do it all at one time. It's chunked, so it's not quite as bad. And in Cengage, it's in 2 parts, not 4. So, I don't know. I'll probably do it on paper. I'm a glutton for punishment. I have to grade all that crap. So not only do y'all all have to write it, I have to grade it. So it takes me a lot of time too. It's much easier if I put it on the computer, but I don't know if that's the most beneficial for y'all. Make sure you're learning that. Okay. Anyway, sorry.
I'd rather paper it.
Sorry for the
I mean,
interruption.
it's a lot easier. to,
I would like it
look
because you
between
can spread
drawers and
everything
like-
out and work on it.
Exactly.
But-
And not to deal with the headache of technology.
If Cengage was a little bit more, it's not bad. It's just that it's not ideal. So if it was a little more, and if it would generate an algorithmic problem for that one, that would be super awesome. Because I have found that peer groups tend to work on it together, which I don't necessarily mind, but it's when you're copying each other and you all have the same mistakes. I correct them and nobody corrects those mistakes. It's kind of comical. It's like, be careful who you copy and make sure they have the right answers. It's the baseball team. They get in study hall and they work on it together, which is fine. I mean, I don't mind if y'all bounce stuff off each other by any means. But the problem is, I had a group of 4 of them, and they all made the same exact errors. So I wrote on there, and what part of your assignment for the second part is to correct the first part before you post it, because then it's going to be wrong again if you don't. It's just anyway. I don't know. As long as you got one of them that kind of was leading it, and knew what to do with it, and most of it was mostly right. It was just that the mistakes that were made were all identical. It's funny. But I know y'all have study hall together, so I don't, Anyway, May 20th. This is for y'all to work, but I mean, I think y'all can handle it. This is pretty easy so far. Jamie's Hardware sold $2,900 of merchandise for cash. Cost of merchandise sold was $2,700. Journalize the entry. So what are you gonna do? We're gonna debit cash. Huh?
For 29.
For $2,900? Okay.
Credit sales.
My jacket's leaving. Sleeves up. Thanks, I want and one thing you could do too, if you're wanting to keep it consistent with the way Cengage does it, you could drop down a line and do your first credit here, so that you have all your debits and credits together. Come on. But that's up to you. I just like to keep everything. This is my way. Do it your way. It doesn't matter. As long as you get the same answer, it's fine. Okay, and the cost was $2,700. Okay. Now, sales on account. Same thing, only different a little bit. What are we gonna debit this time?
Accounts receivable.
Accounts receivable. I know sometimes I like Mickey Mouse y'all to death. Something. But I gotta make sure everybody gets, y'all have to remember too, everybody's at a different level of learning, and so I kind of have to try to make sure I'm hitting all areas. Okay, so we're gonna debit accounts receivable this time because it's on account. For $6,200. What am I gonna credit? Okay, and then what's the next part?
Cost of merchandise.
Yeah, y'all always remember, because see, the thing is, when you get on a test, you're gonna have everything thrown into one test. So you've got to first think of, is it a purchase or a sale? If it's a purchase, you got 2 parts to it. If it's a sale, you got 4, because you've got to put the cost in here. So right now, it seems pretty easy because you know what you're dealing with at one time.
Because cost of merchandise sold is always an expense. You have to
Yes.
express it.
Cost of merchandise sold is an expense.
It's the expense of selling.
Huh?
It's the expense of selling.
Yes. One of many expenses of selling things. That thing is sensitive. You can't get it to erase, and then you just barely touch it with a piece of paper or something, and it goes. Right.
It goes away.
All right, sales on account with credit terms. You knew it was going to come, right? Discounts are granted to a buyer by a seller. That's a customer discount. The customer discounts can be more than just discounting the price of what they're getting. It could be for paying early is what I mean. It could be if you buy 2,000 boxes, we'll give you a discount of 20% or something like that. It could be other types of discounts. We're only going to focus on the paying early kind of discounts. Okay, sorry, I had to make sure that
So we
went.
start with the assumption.
I'm always scared not to answer phone calls that come in during class because I did that once and my dad was laid out in the foyer with a broken leg. What now?
So we're gonna record as the assumption that they take the discount.
Yes, same thing. Yeah, it was paramedics calling me from my parents' home phone. Yeah, I don't do that anymore. I just answer it in the middle of class. And my mom's so bad about calling just whenever. Sales discounts, they encourage a customer to pay early. It's the same thing with the buyer's discounts. When you're a buyer and the seller to you is offering you a discount, it's the same thing. They're trying to get you to pay early. So really, they're kind of paying you to pay early. All right, on June 8th, we have Katie's Farm Supply. She sold $12,500 to customers on account with the credit terms 2, 10, and 30. So what does 2, 10, and 30 mean?
10% taken off the date within 10 days and
Hence the full amount.
you won't pay it 30.
Yep. And you read that 2, 10, net 30, which the net makes no sense to me if you're paying it. Net to me means like less something.
I missed that on the homework. I put I think I put it was 2 net choices. I didn't put net in, so I put the other one.
But it's, I don't know, when you're offered a discount, to me, it sounds like it would be the net of the 2. I don't know why they chose that language for that, but that's what it
How
means.
about the canvas one? The one that you did.
The one I
Oh, the
did,
attendance
yeah,
assignment.
it's the whole amount means
So it wasn't net anything, it was the whole.
the full amount, so, you know, it doesn't make any sense. Net and full are like contradictory, but I didn't make it up. All right, and then we got the cost there. So we got 3 entries to record. On June 8th, we're going to record our sales. So these sales were made on account. So we're going to debit accounts receivable, right? 12.5. Then we'll credit
Sales.
12.5. Oh, but you know what? We're not. Because
Oh, because they.
we have this. So we've actually got to do 12.5 minus 12.5 times the discount. Y'all's calculator's not, I mean, even my nice one is like, well, it ain't that nice, but it's a financial calculator. I can say 12.5 minus 2%, and it gives me the answer. Did y'all not do that? Like if I type in 12,500 minus 2% equals, it gives me the answer. Y'all didn't do that? I mean, the cheap one did it, and this one does it. And you're keying it in. Okay, so
You just said 0.5 minus 2%, so I typed in.
does it work?
No,
Equals,
2% is 0.02. That's what it was.
but hit equals.
It did.
And it gave you what?
Well, 499.98. That's
So
what, that's
you
what
said
2% is.
12.5 minus
0.02.
2%.
Yes.
Not 0.02, hit 2 and the percent symbol.
Yep.
And it gave you 0.02.
Because percent just means
I don't
that
have a percent.
it's 2 decimal places. Well,
Yeah,
that's
but
what,
I mean,
that's all I calculated.
but if I hit those keys in that order, it gives me the answer. I don't know either. Works for me. Just calculate it out. I get 12,250. Do y'all get that?
Yes.
Okay, and that's 12,500 minus the 2% discount. So if you took 12.5 times 2%, it would be 250. Okay, cost of merchandise sold. Is 10,650. And then we're going to take it out of inventory. Okay, so what's next? Record the payment, assuming they took the discount. Okay, so we'll say this is A. We'll say this is B. You know that we don't have a date for when they paid. We could say June 18th, since it's 10 days, but they could have paid before that. So what are we going to debit to show payment? The cash they're paying us in some form of dollars. So how much are we going to show as payment? We're assuming $12,250. And credit?
Accounts receivable.
Accounts receivable. I think a lot of how y'all grasp some of this has a lot to do with your math background too. Like, how good did your school teach you math? And I know, like, that question last night where all you had to do was subtract the 2 and take 2% away, there were several that just really struggled with that. I was like, this is, but you know, I'm also like at a point where I've learned to reason things out too, so I don't want to take for granted that, but then some of y'all got it, so I don't know. Cash refunds and allowances. Okay, so the seller will receive merchandise returned by the buyer, damage, defect, didn't work for them, whatever. So when merchandise is returned, the seller may either give them a refund or give them a credit. When it says a customer allowance, that's like a store credit. You know, like you took something back to Walmart, and if you don't have your receipt, they'll give you a gift card. That's a store credit, right? A lot of places will say no refunds, returns for store credit only, especially clothing places. Smaller, like not maybe big places, but like the little shops. So an allowance is a credit, an account credit, or a store credit. All right, so we talked about when a buyer returns something to a seller, they issue a debit memo explaining the situation and the dollar amount and blah, blah, blah. Which, I don't know if y'all heard me say that. I don't recall whenever I worked in business ever seeing many debit memos, but usually what happens is, as a buyer, you call and say, hey, this ain't gonna work, we're gonna be sending some of it back. you might issue something. You know, a lot of times it's a return PO or something like a return purchase order. Maybe that's essentially a debit memo. I was thinking, where do we ever use this stuff? Some of it's a little, and I'll tell y'all, you'll never see this in your lifetime. But maybe it's just a little bit different way of doing it. So you know, a buyer would send the seller a debit memo. The seller's going to send the customer a credit memo. So it's like an invoice, but it's a credit. So they're telling you, you don't owe us for this now. Okay. A lot of that kind of stuff you're only going to see in business. Now, a lot of times you may get a credit for something you take back. Again, you'll get a store credit as an individual. All right, so let's record some of these. Okay, and I told you in the beginning, remember, when you return something on a journal entry, take into account that when you recorded it, that you took that discount. So you can't show the return of the full thing, you've got to show the return of the discounted thing. Okay, sold merchandise on account, $82,000 with terms 110 and 30. Cost of merchandise was $68,500. Received payment less the discount. Issued a $1,500 credit memo for damaged merchandise. Customer agreed to keep the merchandise. Okay. So for A, we don't have any dates. We'll just
Stick to random date.
you can if it makes you happy. I mean, whatever you want to do. Some people get really wrapped around the actual date. There's no date. Big day. I don't care. Make your own date up. What are we going to debit?
Accounts receivable.
Accounts receivable, because they said it's sold on account. All right. I'm going to pull this up here because y'all got the numbers in front of you. Now, how much are we going to debit accounts receivable for? 81,180. So how did we get that number? We took our sales of 82,000 and we subtracted out our discount that we calculated. That's where the 81,180 came from. All right, and then we'll credit. What account's going to get credited?
Sales.
Sales. Okay, what's the second part of that entry? Cost of merchandise sold. All right, one thing for you to keep in mind, because this may get confusing once you start doing both purchasing and sales entries. Merchandise sold. When you're selling to a customer, you're not going to discount this cost number like you do when you purchase it. This is discounted when you buy something and you put it in inventory. When you're taking it out as cost, it's already been discounted when you bought it. So there will be no discount on this cost of merchandise sold line. So don't discount. Our discount is sales. Okay, does that make sense? Because that will come up and you'll probably think, oh crap, am I supposed to do a discount here too? If you're the buyer, so read it. If you're purchasing something and you get a discount, you're going to discount the inventory that you're putting on the books. So it's already got the discount in it. We're taking it off because it's been sold. You don't figure it again. We're not going to figure another discount. The discount goes to the customer this time. Y'all see what I'm saying? How that can get confusing? Okay. So just use the cost of merchandise sold number they're giving you. So it's 68.5. And we'll credit merchandise inventory. All right, so for B, they paid their account, took the discount. So what will we do to show that? We're gonna debit cash for how much? 81,180. And we're gonna credit. $81,180. Okay. All right. The last thing, they are returning something. Okay, so I'm gonna show you in a minute where this comes from. But this is a new account that we're gonna use. Note in the verbiage up here that it says the customer agreed to keep the merchandise. So the inventory's not coming back. If they're keeping it and they're telling us on here it's damaged, so I mean, we don't want it back anyway. If it's damaged, just keep it, we'll give you a credit. So they're gonna debit customer refunds payable. This is a new one. And credit accounts receivable. They're giving them a credit on their account. If they were paying them cash, it would say that they're going to refund them in cash. If it doesn't, ask me so I can tell you. All right, we're not discounting this $1,500. This is the amount of credit they're giving them. So $1,500. So y'all, when you're working these things, make notes on there. 1,500, not discounted. You know, I mean, make sure you note that kind of stuff so when you go back to look at it, you're not wondering, well, we discounted it when they bought it. Why didn't we put the discount on this $1,500? Because that is the amount of credit they're giving them. So we're not going to discount it. You're discounting to give them an incentive to pay early. So this has nothing to do with that. We're giving them a refund for some stuff that was damaged. Y'all good? Yay, nay? Of course. All right, y'all do this one real quick. See how you do. I think y'all got it. When it gets here is when you're mixing up buying and selling. If y'all did your reading guide, you saw some other accounts, like you would have seen estimated returns inventory. There used to be another layer to a return. And I don't know why they took that out of the book, but it's still in my reading guide. That kind of surprised me, but whatever. In all of these examples, they're saying that the materials or whatever were damaged or defective, and they just tell the customer's going to just keep it. Well, that's not always the case. Sometimes there's things returned just because it didn't work out. So if you have inventory, when you make a sales entry and you have sales and then you have the cost of sales piece, when they bring it back, you kind of got to do the same thing in reverse, right? 4 parts, but I don't know why they took it out. So if you happen to see that estimated returns inventory, that's something that was on there that they're not including this time. Don't know why. Just one less thing for you to have to remember. wrong one. Oh, I'm able to move up. I can't skip. If you were to post this to their ledger, you'd end up with a negative amount in their accounts receivable account, and that's right. Because we're assuming they're going to make future purchases against that credit. And we'll wipe it out. So I get that? Okay. So the next thing we are starting is freight costs. And I would rather not jump off into that. And then y'all not get into it again until Monday. So, I mean, you'll get it Friday, I guess, with class, but you'll get it Friday with the class, but I don't want to start it in the middle. So, you'll have homework on this?
It's really exciting.
What's that?
It's really exciting.
What's exciting?
Phone truth.